Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We're going to open with 498 in your hymnal, Peace Like a River. I'll invite you to join me in standing, and we'll sing these 3 verses. Lord, we're thankful this morning for each and every one that made it out this morning. We're thankful for the word that you've given us. We're thankful for the peace, love, and joy that you also give to us. We ask that you be with us as we study your word this morning. In your name I pray. Amen. You may be seated except for the Merlaus. Good. The Norton's class. Good. The giant youth group.
John 14:6. Jesus says to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. John 14:6.
And the adult class. Good. I'll invite the other classes to join you in standing. We'll do the first verse of Peace Like a River as they wind their way out of here. You may be seated.
Of February. All right. Thanks. How about homework handout for today from last week? Anybody need that? Bev and Tyler are back. I heard you had heating issues up north. Is that right? You had heating issues up north? Oh, you were here last Sunday? Okay. Anybody else need a handout for today? All right, I'm going to count on somebody to be helpful to me. So back in the day, if I wanted to know who was president during the Cuban Missile Crisis, I could have asked Don Sleeman. But back in the day, I would have went and I'd have grabbed the C volume of the Encyclopedia Britannica and hoped there might be an article on the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I'd read that article and I'd hopefully find out who was president during the Cuban Missile Crisis. That's how we used to do this, right? And then eventually, we started Googling things, right? I suspect I could ask Siri. You think I could ask Siri? Let's see what she says. And then you're going to help me out. Siri, who was president during the Cuban Missile Crisis? I know that. She says John F. Kennedy was president during the Cuban Missile Crisis. You knew that. I knew that before I asked the question. So, is this not what we've been able to do for now decades? We could just Google things. So some smart young person, help me to understand this whole excitement about AI. Is AI just what we've been doing for 20 years, or is this new? Help me out, Patrick. AI stands for, thank you, Patrick. AI stands for artificial intelligence. Is it really a new thing, or is this just an old thing with a new name? I love this. He just keeps doing this with his hand. Whatever that means. Old technology with more parts added. You were not really very helpful to me. I was hoping to get a better explanation. I was looking for a young person. Because young people know stuff. Jeremy, help me out.
So I actually use AI quite a bit.
Yeah? Yeah?
It will write it for me, which is definitely new.
So you tell it you want it to do this, and bada bing, bada boom, out it shoots.
Tell it anything. I'm just writing code.
Code.
And if I pause for a second, it will make a suggestion.
It'll keep working without you.
Yeah, it will I know what you're trying to do, and it will write it for me.
It's figured out what you're trying to do based on what it saw already.
Based on the context of what it saw and the other parts of what I've been working in and other parts of the program.
Soon you're not going to be necessary.
I would worry about that if people could make up their minds.
I see.
They don't know what they want.
Okay. Jeremy says, as a guy who writes code, it'll sort of pick up where you've left off and make suggestions about how to proceed.
It's usually 90-95% accurate.
Okay.
It wouldn't work if it wrote the whole thing.
Right. All right. Any other helpful explanations of Richard AI? Yes. 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 It could be, and pretty powerful. Gerald? Good for blackmail? Okay. Yeah, so AI only knows what it knows. That was profound, wasn't it? Sounded like a tautology. It only knows what it knows, but what it knows is a whole lot. Because it has not only paid attention to what you've written, but it's paid attention to everything else you had written before and everything else that's out there, right? Any other, Scott?
So we've been warned at work as far as AI, like doing reports and things like
Yeah.
that, because when you require specific data,
Yeah,
AI is not what you want to use.
Right.
Use your specific data. But it will go out on the internet and it'll collect all this information
yeah,
from the good sources.
yeah, and the bad.
And so that's where you really run the risk. You got to be careful what you use.
Can you imagine, Phyllis, if you were still teaching and you assigned an essay to your students? I suppose most of them are going to come back with a very polished, smooth essay, better than anything they'd ever written before. And then you say to yourself, self, why do I assign this? Because I know this is not original to them. Yes? Yeah, open your composition book and start, and you'd have to do it in class, right, Pastor? Otherwise, I don't think you have any confidence that the work you're going to get is going to be original to the student. Brenda? Yes. Uh-huh.
To come up with their website.
Uh-huh.
So it is allowed in some classes now about Jones to use that. Ruby, she did use it, she read it and then she put it in her own words. So she used their format and what they said, but then she adjusted it to make it to herself. So she just kind of followed the example of it.
So it seems to me, Patrick, that what we're experiencing now is really kind of what we've been used to doing, but to a greater degree. I'm picking up on this. So, again, back in the old days, if I wanted to know where I should look in the Bible to learn about levirate marriage, I would have grabbed my whatever volume it is that has an L in it, the Zondervan Pictorial Bible Encyclopedia, looked at the article on levirate marriage, and there'd be a bunch of passages listed in that article, and I know to go there. Nowadays, though, I think I can just, on Google Chrome, type in levirate marriage, and those passages are going to show up quicker than I could pull them off the shelf. So there's advantages and scariness about this, right? Rose is not here this morning. She's working, right, Tammy? I was going to ask Rose how this business relates to modifying portraits. So back in the olden days, you took a picture of somebody with your film camera. You wouldn't get to see it until you had the film developed, of course. And then once the pictures came back and you realized that Aunt Susie was missing her head because you took pictures like my mother. My mother always took pictures missing people's heads. I don't know. She apparently couldn't understand what the viewfinder was showing her. But nowadays, you take a picture and somebody's not in the portrait. We took a school picture one time, Pastor Holmes, a school staff picture, and you were not there. Eventually, Rose takes a picture of you, and you magically appear in the group. So we've been doing this kind of stuff for a long time, but you can tell when you look at that school portrait that you were not standing in that spot. Something isn't quite right. But I suppose now, is it not true that pictures modified by AI are just about indistinguishable from the real thing? Yeah. Look for extra fingers? That would be the cue? That'd be the cue? Well, okay. The what? Polaroid? Yeah, because then you get the picture right away. Yeah, but you couldn't modify it. Except with a pair of scissors. Huh? Some ex. Your ex-girlfriend got taken out of that picture. Do you trust, this is a second question, I'll get to Proverbs 12:22 again in a minute. Do you trust what people post about themselves on social media? I don't ever see it, so I don't have to worry about that, but are there people that lie about themselves on FaceTwit or whatever that X and Facebook and Snapchat and all those how am I doing? Am I listing things that are real now? Do you trust what people post about themselves? Depends on what? Who they are? I see. I can't imagine being in the dating world and having to count on somebody's representation of themselves on a dating app. Maybe it's all legit, but it sure would seem scary to me. Like, is that really? Am I getting a straight scoop there? Proverbs 12:22 is our memory verse, right? Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who act faithfully are his delight. I want to think with you this morning about honesty, but first we should think about being a liar. So here's the first piece under the liar on the homework handout from last week. Let's make a quick list of famous liars in Scripture. Satan in Genesis chapter. Come on, you can do this. Genesis chapter 3. Yeah, Satan in Genesis chapter 3. What does Jesus call Satan in John 8:44? Father of lies. Yeah, he calls him father of lies. Satan, great. I had Satan on my list. Famous liars in Scripture. What? Abraham. To whom did Abraham lie? Yeah, so he lied to Abimelech to say that Sarah was his sister. Was Sarah his sister? Well, kind of, right? Half sister. It was only a half lie. Yeah, but he was lying, wasn't he? What was his purpose? To protect his own skin at the risk of his gorgeous elderly wife. Richard, liar. The Hebrew midwives, good. I didn't have that on my list. So Shiphrah and Puah, among others, in Exodus chapter. Could be 1, could be 2, I can't remember. Anybody know? 2 maybe. So they were supposed to do what with all the baby Israelite boys? Throw them in the river, like Moses' parents did. Yeah, that's what they say. You know, by the time those Hebrew women, they're fast birthers. Yeah, every time we get there, they've already had the child. You think they were lying? You don't think that Hebrew women were just fast birthers? Yeah, I suspect that's true. Gerald? David lived a lie, especially when it came to his relationship with Bathsheba. Yeah, and just think about how David handled that sin. He had sex with Bathsheba, got her pregnant, and then what's he do? He calls her husband home from the war. And he says to Uriah, hey, you deserve some time off. Why don't you go home and sleep with your wife? Yeah, he's living a lie. Uriah won't play ball. So eventually, David sends him back to the front with instructions to withdraw from him, and he's killed because of that. So, yeah, David lived a lie. Famous liars in Scripture, Larry? Peter? How? I don't know him. He's not my friend. Yeah, 3 times, just as Jesus had predicted. Yep, thanks. I didn't have Peter on my list either. There was. And restoration. And not just forgiveness, but restoration to productive ministry. Jesus will say to him 3 times, take care of the flock. Mike? Jacob, how'd Jacob lie? He did. He lied to his father Isaac about Esau. Yeah, so Jacob, at his mother's insistence, his mother was a conniver, wasn't she? Rebecca was that kind of a woman. She says to Jacob, hey, your dad's getting ready to give a blessing to Esau. So she says to Jacob, tell you what, Esau's going out to try and kill an animal, bring it to his dad, cook it up for his dad. I'll take care of the animal business. So you start smelling like Esau and start feeling like Esau, because Isaac's vision was really bad. You know how this is, Carolyn. Yeah. Can you imagine if Ron was hairy but Ron's brother was smooth? You'd know him from his smell. Yes, you might know him from his voice. And so Isaac says to Jacob, when Jacob comes in and says, I'm here for my blessing, Dad. Jacob says, the smell is the smell of Esau, but the voice is the voice of Jacob. Come here, let me feel you. And he feels his arm. What's on his arm? Animal skins. How hairy was Esau? Wow. So Jacob lies to his dad and receives the blessing. Eventually Esau comes in and starts to cry out, don't you have another blessing? And he has a blessing of sorts for him. Good. Thanks for Jacob. Who else? Ananias and Sapphira in Acts chapter 5, I think. Does that sound right? Nobody's objecting. Ananias and Sapphira. So everybody was in the business of selling stuff and donating the money to the church for its use to help people who were in need. So Ananias and Sapphira had a piece of property, and they sold it, and they donated some of the proceeds to the church, and that was totally within their rights. They didn't have to donate any of it, let alone all of it, but they pretended that they donated all the proceeds from the sale of the property. Ananias comes in first, says, here's the money. Peter, sensing that this was going on, says, is that what you sold the property for? Yeah. Falls down dead. They carry him out. Sapphira comes in. Peter, is that what you sold the property for? Uh-huh. She falls down dead too. Yeah, because they lied. Lied to whom? Lied to the Holy Spirit, lied to God. Good. Famous liars? Yeah. Yeah. Famous liars will have their place in the lake of fire. And in Revelation, is it 22? I made myself a note. Oh, 21:8, sorry. 21:8, there would be no liars in heaven. That'd be nice. Famous liars, any others come to mind, Nathan? Who? Oh, David's wife, Michael. I was thinking of the archangel. Yeah. How did she lie? Because she put an idol in the bed and covered it up to pretend that David was there. David, however, had already escaped. Okay? We should, sometime when we have time, we should talk about whether there are legitimate lies that can be told in, say, some kind of a game or in war. We'll talk about that. Maybe not today. Kenny? Rahab the harlot, Joshua chapter 2. So Rahab hides some Israelite spies. And eventually the officials of Jericho come looking for them. And Rahab says, they left. They're not here. Yeah, they were. They were hiding upstairs. Yeah, she lied. I buy that. Michelle? Can you imagine? So for, I don't know how long, Joseph was just a boy, a teenager when he was carried off to Egypt. And maybe I should know how long he was in Egypt before his father comes to know that he's still alive. It's decades. Can you imagine that those 10 brothers eventually, I'm sure you imagine eventually Benjamin's in on the knowledge of it too? How could they possibly keep that a secret from their dad for that long? How can, you got that many people with bad information. Isn't somebody going to rat somebody else out? Yeah, good. Larry? It would seem like it. Seemed like it. And they were obviously fearful once Isaac was dead, once Jacob was dead, that they were going to be in trouble. And Joseph says to them, no, God designed this for good. Gerald? Samson what? Oh, to Delilah, about the source of his strength. Yeah, he kept making up these stories, and the trouble is he was playing fast and loose, and he was getting closer and closer to the truth. Eventually, he reveals the source of his strength and finds himself with his eyes gouged out, grinding grain. Other famous liars, Phyllis? Yeah, Sarah. Yeah, Sarah laughed behind the tent curtain, and when God calls her on the carpet for laughing, she says, "No, I didn't laugh. No, foolish woman." Richard. Yeah, those false teachers called out in 2 Peter and in Jude. Any others come to your mind? Phyllis? Gehazi. Yeah, who was the servant of Elisha? Elisha. Yeah, lots of luck keeping Elisha and Elijah straight. Yeah, Gehazi, who when Elisha said, "Where you been?" after Naaman was healed, Gehazi said, I didn't go anywhere. I've just been hanging out. I'm just outside. Liar. And it turns out disastrous for him too, doesn't it? Anybody else come to your mind? Helen? Yeah, these two women, two prostitutes living in the same house, both had children. One of them killed her child by accident, took the other child, and then they began to fight about whose child the living child was. And Solomon's wise application of justice was cut the child in half, give each one half. The woman who was the real mother of the child said, no, let her have it, which was a lie. And the other woman was lying as well. I hadn't thought about those either. There's only one more on my list that you all haven't mentioned. Oh, two more on my list you haven't mentioned. Isaac. Isaac lied about his wife in the same way that Abraham did, right? Lied about his wife not being his wife until the foreign king saw him laughing, quote unquote, my Bible has, laughing with his wife, which is, I'm sure, a bit of a sexual innuendo. And Potiphar's wife was the other one that came to my mind. Potiphar's wife said about Joseph, well, he tried to take advantage of me, and when I called out, he left his coat. No, he left his coat because you were trying to take advantage of him. Well, that was fun. I want to think about three particular ways of not telling the truth: fabrication, deception, and flattery. Let's start with fabrication. When children make up stories, we think it's cute. When adults make up stories, we call them liars. Yeah, someone who tells lies, we call them liars. Why do adults make up stories? Why do they lie? To make themselves look good? Okay? To stay out of trouble, right? To avoid unpleasant consequences. Anything else come to mind? Why adults tell lies? Insecurity. Yeah. Maybe they don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. Why are they concerned about people's feelings? Because they like to be liked. Right? So if you like to be liked, you'll lie to keep someone else from not liking you. No, you lie to keep someone else from not liking you. I had it right the first time. It took me a minute. There's too many negatives there to make sense of that sentence. All right. Yeah, the 2 answers I would have had to that, why do they do that, is they do it to escape punishment. They do it to inflate their own reputation. Let's look at Proverbs chapter 21. Proverbs 21:6. Proverbs 21:6 says, the getting of treasures by a lying tongue is a fleeting vapor and a snare of death. And then back to chapter 12, verse 19. Chapter 12, verse 19, truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue is but for a moment. Does fabricating stories yield good long-term results? It seems good in the moment, because I can avoid punishment, I can inflate my own reputation, I can look good in the eyes of others. It doesn't hold up, it doesn't last. Inevitably, that lie is going to come out, and you're going to be found out, and you're going to look all the more foolish than if you just told the truth in the first place. So again, there's that contrast in both of those verses between being truthful lips endure forever, 21:6, no positive there. And then the negative in 12:19, a lying tongue is but for a moment, and 21:6, the getting of treasures by a lying tongue is a fleeting vapor and a snare of death. This contrast between long-term benefit of telling the truth and short-term benefit of lying. I got a story for you. You ready? Jill. Her name is Jill. Don't forget. Jill is she works as a graphic artist. She's used up all of her allotted vacation days supervising trips with the youth group and counseling at summer camp. Jill's sister has unexpectedly dropped in for a long overdue visit, but she can stay only one day. Jill calls in sick. Is Jill a liar? Yes. What should Jill have done? Ask for the day off. Boss says no, and then what does Jill need to do? Go to work or quit, one of the two, right? Yeah, go to work. Yeah, but Maybe Jill calls the boss and says, listen, I know I'm all out of sick days. I'm not sick, but my sister came in and I'm going to spend the day with her. And then live with the consequences of that. At least tell the truth. I mean, I saw that happen when I was working at Kellogg's. Often there'd be guys who'd call in, quote unquote, sick when they weren't sick. They just didn't want to go to work. If I ever had a time where I didn't want to go to work, I'd call in and say, I don't want to come to work. I'm not coming in today. And that got easier and easier as it got close to the time when I was getting ready to leave, when I left Kellogg's in 1996. And they had made it, some of you have worked in a factory, they'd made it more and more difficult because what was one time a 12 days of production and 2 days off, 12 days of production and 2 days off became eventually just steady production with no days off. And it got burdensome after a while. So normal people want to have a day off occasionally. Jill, I don't know what you think Jill should have done, but it seems clear to me that Jill was lying, wasn't she? Fabricating a story. Secondly, deception. Proverbs 3:32. Chapter 3, verse 32. This will sound a bit like our memory verse. Chapter 3, verse 32 says, the devious person is an abomination to the Lord, but the upright are in his confidence. And then chapter 4, verse 24. It says, put away from you crooked speech and put devious talk far from you. What does God think about deceit? What does God think about us deceiving others? He hates it. Are there any exceptions to this? Is it ever okay to deceive others? Is there a yes to that question? Okay, so in the case of war, you can fool others. When the British were participating with the Americans in preparation for landing on the shores of France, the two armies together had made all these inflatable tanks, right? And all of that was a ruse. It was a lie. If you want to be really sticky about it, it was a lie, but an acceptable lie in your opinion. Because in the case of a warfare, lying is part of the game. Okay? Is there ever any other time when it's okay to deceive? Nathan? Was Samuel deceitful when God says, I want you to go anoint David king? Samuel says, but Saul will kill me if I do that. God says, take an animal with you. And when you get to town, when you get to Bethlehem, just say, I've come to offer sacrifice. So I suspect that Samuel took the cow with him, right? I think so. Whatever the animal was. Yeah. So the question is he lying? Do we want to be careful to use the word lying a little more carefully than that? Are there times where withholding some of the information is a legitimate thing to do? I agree. Other times when it's okay to be deceitful. I appreciate that. But it's okay to do right. The question is whether it's right or wrong. That's the question we're trying to get at. You and I are playing, are you a card player? Yeah. What? He's a what player? Oh, I see. There's an I heard that. I didn't think about that, Pat. I'll try to remember. Every time I think about saying I'll do this. But when you're playing cards, there's a measure of deceit involved in that all along, is there not? Even if you're not playing some terrible game like poker, you're playing euchre or you're playing some other card game. Every game you play, there's opportunity for deception. But I agree, it's never right to do wrong to do right, but there's a certain measure of the nature of that game, just like the nature of warfare, that makes deception part of the game. Right? It's part of the rules of the game, really. Michelle? Yeah, so is it wrong for Corey Ten Boom to hide the Jews in her attic? My suspicion is that the Gestapo agents, when they come to the door and ask this 9-year-old girl, are there any Jews in the house? And she says, no. I think they're probably going to look further than that. God was in that. So I don't. Don would say it was wrong because it's never right to do wrong to do right. She could have said, yeah, they're up in the attic. And God would still have caused his plan to be carried out. I'm just trying to think about this business of deception, if it's ever legitimate. Phyllis? Yeah, planning a surprise party. So you're planning a surprise party for who shall remain nameless because it's a surprise. And when the person who's being surprised thinks that something's up and asks you, then you make up some cockamamie other answer, don't you? Again, that's part of the game. It's part of the way the game is played. Okay. I think I can tolerate that. I think I can buy deception in war, in game, in things like that. Larry? Probably. It will. Yeah, it could be. It could be. Yeah, and we engage in deception all the time leading up to Christmas with our children about the gifts that they're going to get or what we've done about buying them gifts. Yeah, the motivation behind it is important as well. That's true. I'll buy that. Ready for another case study? At a family reunion, you hear that your husband and your brother are comparing churches. The brother asks how many people regularly attend your church. And your husband answers, oh, between 200 and 300. You know for a fact that your church average is 175. Later, when you ask your husband about it, he replies, I told the truth. I didn't say between 200 and 300. I said between 200 and 300. Was the husband a liar? Was the husband a liar? Those of you who are concerned about his motivation would say yes. He's trying to impress by proclaiming how many people. Although he did say between 200 and 300. Huh? Boy, Gerald is harsh. Gerald doesn't have any room for this business. All right. Anything else you want to say about deception while we're here? It seems to me that we have an interest in this topic. Wyatt? Can you give us an example? Yeah? Right? Does that seem like that's part of how the game is designed to be played? I think so. Yeah. Yeah, Wyatt in his play acting as a POW. Survival school. I see. So in that game, part of the game is to be deceitful. And that seems legitimate to you. Okay. It felt like it. He's not quite so sure he's ready to say it's good all the time. Richard? Right. 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 Sooner or later you get to understand that liars lie. And those of you who have raised a handful of children, you understand that You probably had one or more who was typically not good at telling the truth, and you stop trusting what they say. And then they whine. Oh, you just don't trust me. Correct. Why would that be? Because that's a pattern you've established. Yeah. All right, anything else? Category number 3 of liars, flattery. Why is flattery such an effective way of manipulating people? Why does it work? Ken? It appeals to my ego. Yes. Yes, when you tell me, oh, that was really nice, or, oh, you always do that so well, or you're my favorite whatever. Yeah. All of that stuff appeals to our ego. It makes us feel good. What if you recognize it as flattery? Does it still feel good? No, then you feel foolish. Like, why am I so concerned about that stuff? Yeah. Proverbs 26:28. Last verse of Proverbs 26. A lying tongue hates its victims, and a flattering mouth works ruin. Now over to chapter 29, verse 5. A man who flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his feet. What do flatterers think of the people to whom they lie? What do they think about the people they flatter, Richard? Say again? Yeah, hatred. Yeah, at the very least, they despise them. Yeah, the people that you flatter, and maybe you've engaged in flattery, because after all, it's sort of socially acceptable. When you do that, you're not showing care or concern. So imagine, Mike, that Nikki comes out getting ready for church on Sunday morning, and she looks absolutely hideous in the outfit she's got on. The temptation is to say to her, well, that really looks nice. But that's not kind. Flattery is not kind. Flattery is not telling people the truth, right? Okay, Larry. Larry's going to argue for flattery. Only in marriage. Happy life. Chris does not want you to lie to her, though, does she? Or does she want to be flattered? She does want to be flattered, I can tell. Helen? That's what you call kind? I love that. When Michael's trying to be kind, he says, you're going to wear that? I see. I may have read into it just a little more than I should have. Go ahead, Kenny. It makes you want to buy a car? He will. Yeah, he'll make you feel good and you'll buy his car. Another case study, you ready? This is about Bob. Bob wants to be promoted up the corporate ladder. His current boss is not exactly the most polished businessman, but Bob is careful to compliment him on any decision he makes, good or foolish. Bob takes every opportunity to make favorable remarks about his boss's taste in clothes, food, office supplies, anything. Is Bob a liar? Yes. Does it go back to motivation again? He's doing this. He's complimenting his boss's choice of paper clips, office supplies, only because he wants to somehow make the boss think more highly of him, right? He's working his way up the corporate ladder. Gerald? Yes? It can be. Yeah. Even legitimate compliments are sometimes hard to take because you're not sure quite what people mean. So just be alert to that. Proverbs chapter 6, kind of a bottom line set of verses. Proverbs chapter 6, beginning of verse 16. Proverbs 6, 16. There are 6 things the Lord hates. No, there are 7. Talk to me about this pattern. There are 6 things the Lord hates. No, there are 7. You'll find this pattern is n plus 1 over and over again in wisdom literature. So verse 16 of chapter 6, there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him. First, haughty eyes, that proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among brothers. It is no mystery what God thinks about lying, right? It's pretty clear. Pretty clear to me, at least, that God is not a fan of lying. In all of our efforts to try and excuse ourselves and make our lies seem socially acceptable, all of the time we try and pretend that, no, it's not really a lie. It's just the kinds of things that people say. All of that aside, what God says about liars is, I hate that. I hate those false witnesses, verse 19. I hate that lying tongue, verse 17. Let's talk about truth. Look at Proverbs chapter 8. We've been talking about lying. We should spend a little bit of time talking about truth, shouldn't we? Proverbs chapter 8 begins like this. Does not wisdom call? Does not understanding raise her voice? On the heights beside the way, at the crossroads, she takes her stand. Beside the gates in front of the town, at the entrance of the portal, she cries aloud. So wisdom is calling. Verse 4, to you, O men, I call, and my cry is to the children of man. O simple ones, learn prudence. O fools, learn sense. Hear, for I will speak noble things, and from my lips come what is right. For my mouth will utter truth. Wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are righteous. There is nothing twisted or crooked in them. What does wisdom think about truth-telling? Wisdom gives truth-telling a thumbs up. Yeah, as a poet, we've spent all this time thinking about lying and how bad lying is in various forms, but it appears to me that truth-telling is promoted clearly. Proverbs 12:17. The question I'll ask after we read these 3 little passages is, when might someone struggle to be a truthful witness? Proverbs 12:17. Whoever speaks the truth gives honest evidence, but a false witness utters deceit. Chapter 14, verse 5. 14:5. A faithful witness does not lie, but a false witness breathes out lies. And now verse 25, the same chapter. A truthful witness saves lives, but one who breathes out lies is deceitful. So when might someone struggle to be a truthful witness? We've really we've beat this up already in terms of why do people lie. When would someone struggle to be a faithful, truthful witness? When? Okay. Okay. When your life is on the line, there's some great danger to you. How about when you just want other people to think highly of you? How about, Mrs. Beebe, when I didn't do my homework? I know I was supposed to. And I come in and I make up this story about how, oh, you never told me I had to do that. That's when I ask one of the other students, did I tell you? Okay. Yeah, because sometimes I forget to tell them to do things I was meant to tell them to do. Yeah. So telling the truth is hard when it brings unpleasant consequences, does it not? What does your truth-telling, or lack of it, reveal about your heart? Is it true that what lies inside of a man comes out? Yeah, comes out through your mouth. Yeah, your heart's going to show up. Your heart is showing when you fail to tell the truth. I think that's true. Well, what do you mean? Like you say you do. Well, Mike's question is, if I say I love the Lord, and I'll say that, am I telling the truth or am I lying? Do my actions bear out the truthfulness of my statement? To varying degrees. Just follow me around for the day. Yeah. All of us speak better than we live, right? I certainly preach better than I live. Yes. That's not an excuse, it's just a recognition. Richard has notes for next Sunday. Did you get some help? Good. Ken, go ahead. What do you mean? Yeah? Yeah? Yeah. Right? 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 No. He does. Grace and mercy in time of need, but expects us to apply ourselves diligently. Jesus didn't say to Peter, do you love me? Yes, you know I love you. I thought so. No. Go and do. Good. Thanks for that. The last question on my handout is, have you been convicted? I don't mean of a felony. Have you been convicted about fabrication or deception or flattery? You should be. If so, what can we do about that? Confess that sin to God, right? And then make some mid-February resolutions. I know we're a long ways from January the 1st, but you and I can commit ourselves again to being truth tellers and lie avoiders. Replace lying with truthing. Is it okay to use truth as a verb? Why not? Paul does that in Ephesians chapter 4. So there's a task for us. Parting shot? Anything that we didn't give enough attention to this morning about the wisdom of honesty? Go ahead, Michelle. Yeah? Yep. Michelle wants to talk about Rahab. So Rahab hid the Israelite spies. Whom had Rahab decided was worthy of her worship? The Canaanite gods that the people of Jericho were worshiping, or Yahweh, the one true and living God who had brought the Israelites out of Egypt, brought them across the wilderness, and eventually to the doorstep of the promised land where they're going to go in and scope out how hard it will be to take Jericho. So Rahab had decided that the one God that was worthy of her worship was the God of the Israelites. And so she was being loyal to Yahweh, disloyal to the Canaanite leadership and the Canaanite gods. Does that help any? She's made a decision about who's worthy of her loyalty. And now we're back, Nathan, in that business of warfare. So the warfare is going to be between Yahweh and the Israelites and the Canaanites and their false gods. And in that case, Rahab has decided who gets her vote. So I don't know. I understand very technically, very woodenly, as Gerald would have us think, that what she told was not the truth. But in this situation, it feels like not telling the truth was legitimate. It's not that God couldn't have protected the Israelite spies if she just said to the soldiers who came, yeah, they're upstairs hiding under a bunch of sheaves of grain. Kenny? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, these same guys that told lies themselves, but they hate being lied to. Why is it that you hate being lied to? Because it's not fair, it's not right, it's not kind. So let that be a reminder to us of the disaster of lying to others. Anything else before we pack up, Larry? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. That was going to be my question. When you say you flatter one child but not the other, is it really flattery, or is it just a matter of trying to encourage one in a way that the other one doesn't need encouragement? When you quote unquote flatter the child that needs encouragement, are you lying to him? Maybe. Okay. Okay. Richard? Yeah. Yep. Ah, did you hear that? Wise advice. When a dog comes up and licks you in the back of the hand, that's what dogs do. But when a man does that, watch out for him. Yeah, don't be a hand licker. Good word picture. Hey, thanks. Next week, the wisdom of friendship. We look forward to that. Thanks.